let yourself relax. Close your eyes gently. And come with me into an autumn morning. Across the wide fields, the sun is just beginning to rise. The first light of day stretches softly, like a thin blanket of gold laid over the earth. Dewdrops sparkle, tiny and clear, glistening on the tips of grass, catching the golden light of dawn. The air is fresh, crisp, and cool enough to make you want to take a deep, slow breath. The scent of earth, the scent of fallen leaves, and the quiet breath of autumn mingle together, bringing a sense of peace that words can hardly capture. From far away, you might hear sparrows chirping, the low caw of a crow, and then silence again, all dissolving into the gentle wind. At the edge of the field stands a little wooden schoolhouse, just one room. The walls, dark and aged, yet strong and steady. The roof, weathered with moss, sprinkled with red maple leaves, resting quietly, as though they, too, wished to listen to today's lesson. On the wooden steps at the front, golden leaves are scattered in layers. Every footstep upon them makes a soft crunch, crunch, a tender melody of autumn. The morning light pours through the square windows, spilling onto wooden desks worn smooth by time. On the tabletops remain faint carvings of children from long ago, a few names, a few clumsy drawings, all whispering stories from the past. You can almost hear the faint wind slipping through the cracks in the walls. The chalk resting quietly in its little wooden box, waiting for lessons to begin. Everything is calm, gentle, patient, as if the schoolhouse itself is holding its breath, ready for the day. The door creaks open. The teacher enters. He is an older man, his hair touched with silver, yet his smile is warm, radiant as the morning sun. His eyes glimmer with kindness, filled with patience and love. He places a heavy book upon the desk, looks toward the rows of empty seats, and smiles softly, as if welcoming not only his students, but also the autumn itself. His voice rises in the quiet room, slow, steady, and warm, like the wind of the season. We shall begin a new day. Outside, the sun climbs a little higher. Leaves continue to drift down, gently, gently, like the rhythm of a heartbeat. Inside the small classroom, silence fills the air, a silence so peaceful, touched only by the glow of sunlight, the whisper of autumn, and the tender sound of the teacher's voice. Listen. Slowly, let your own thoughts begin to soften, as though you were sitting there, inside the one-room schoolhouse, embraced by autumn gold, where every worry of the world has fallen away, left far behind. Inside the little wooden classroom, the morning light drifted gently through the square windows, falling upon the desks worn smooth by time, then spilling across the room as softly as a long, deep breath. The children sat neatly on the old wooden chairs, and every step they took echoed with a low thump, thump, against the wooden floor, fading quickly into the warm stillness. Chairs creaked softly as they were pulled out, but instead of breaking the peace, the sound became slow notes of a quiet autumn melody. Old notebooks were placed carefully upon the desks, the pages turned open with a soft rustle, like fallen leaves outside the door. Each small hand held onto its book with care, each bright pair of eyes lifted toward the blackboard, waiting. The teacher stood at the front, calm and steady, his gentle gaze resting upon every little face, as though he wished to offer them peace and kindness. He picked up a piece of chalk, round and white, glowing faintly in the sunlight. A soft click sounded as it touched the blackboard, and then the first lines began to appear. The chalk made a slow, steady scritch-scritch. Each letter seemed to arrive with the rhythm of a heartbeat. Each line stretched across the board like a long, quiet breath, carrying the whole room into a single, steady rhythm. Words took shape, simple, round, and clear, shining like the golden light that streamed through the window. No one hurried, no one rushed. There was only slowness, repetition, and the gentle patience of an autumn morning. The teacher paused, turned, and spoke in a warm voice. "Today, we will learn about kindness." The children grew still. Even the breeze outside seemed to pause, listening at the window. And then the teacher began his story, softly, slowly. It was about a poor boy who had only one loaf of bread left. He could have kept it for himself, yet when he saw a hungry friend beside him, he broke the loaf in half and shared it. The teacher's voice flowed evenly, rising and falling like a calm stream winding its way through the fields, so that every word, every phrase, settled quietly into the hearts of his listeners. The children leaned forward, their eyes wide and shining, as though tiny candles had just been lit inside them. Now and then, a soft giggle escaped when the teacher added a light, playful touch. Then silence returned again, stretching long and tender. Outside, the wind whispered through the branches, and the dry leaves fell, spinning in the air before resting gently on the wooden steps. The sound of leaves brushing together, rustle, rustle, blended with the quiet rhythm of chalk against the board. Inside, the children's small breaths rose and fell, steady and calm, blending with the quiet heartbeat of the teacher. All together, they became one soft, unbroken melody, like invisible arms holding the classroom in warmth. When the story ended, the teacher smiled kindly and said, slowly, "The most precious things are not what we keep for ourselves, but what we give away to others." His words lingered in the air, then dissolved into the golden light, into the breath of autumn, into every slow breath drawn by the children. Time itself seemed to pause. Nothing remained but peace, stillness, and quiet comfort. Each breath became deeper. Each gaze slowly closed. And the little classroom drifted into gentleness, as if the whole world had folded into the tender embrace of autumn. The morning passed slowly, like a gentle stream winding its way through a quiet valley. Then, from the small tower above the roof, the school bell began to ring. Ding, ding, ding. Each sound rose into the crisp autumn air, clear yet soft, stretching far across the fields. The bell did not hurry. It lingered with every note, fading into the silence, leaving behind a trace of calm. The children lifted their heads, their eyes sparkling. It was time for the midday rest. They closed their books. The sound of pages turning was soft, like the rustle of dry leaves. Desks creaked, chairs shifted, and little footsteps tapped gently on the wooden floor. The children gathered together around a long wooden table near the window. Sunlight pooled upon the surface, wrapping them in warmth. From their satchels, they brought out simple meals: a small loaf of bread, a red apple polished until it shone, a small bottle of milk. Nothing more. Yet, in that quiet classroom, everything felt full. Everything felt enough. The teacher joined them, sitting at the end of the table. His smile was calm, his voice low, as he began to share a memory from his own childhood, the way his mother baked bread on cool mornings, the sound of the fire crackling in their old hearth, the joy of dividing warm slices among his brothers and sisters. The children listened, nibbling slowly at their food, their eyes half dreaming as they imagined the old kitchen, the smell of bread rising in the air, the laughter of family. Now and then, a soft giggle passed among them, but always, the stillness returned, gentle and complete. Outside the window, the fields lay quiet, painted in gold and amber. A light breeze moved through the tall grass, carrying with it the scent of soil, of straw, of faraway smoke from a farmer's fire. A sparrow landed on the wooden ledge, tilted its head, and chirped softly, as if adding its own voice to the noon hour. The children chewed slowly, savoring each bite. The crunch of bread, the sweetness of apples, the smooth taste of milk, each sound, each taste, small and unhurried, blending into the silence of the schoolhouse. When the teacher's story came to an end, he looked at his students, his eyes shining kindly, and said, "The world gives us little things, but when we share them, they become enough for everyone." The children nodded, and for a while, no one spoke. The only sounds were the whispers of wind, the faint chime of the bell, still echoing in memory, and the deep, slow rhythm of breathing, steady, even calm. In that moment, the classroom was no longer just a room of wood and desks. It became a sanctuary of warmth, a cradle of kindness, a resting place for hearts. As the midday rest faded into memory, the classroom settled once more into its quiet rhythm. The children returned to their desks, their movements unhurried, their faces softened by warmth and comfort. Outside, the sun had shifted, its golden rays slanting through the windows at a lower angle, stretching long beams of light across the wooden floor. Dust motes floated lazily in the air, rising and falling in the sunlight like tiny dancers. The room was calm, filled with stillness, filled with breath. Every creak of the wooden floor, every faint tap of a pencil, seemed softened, drawn into the hush of the afternoon. The teacher stood at the front once again, his voice slower now, his tone gentler, as though the entire world had agreed to whisper. He held a small, worn book in his hands. Its pages were yellowed with age, edges curled like autumn leaves. He opened the book carefully, and with a steady breath, began to read aloud. The poem was about autumn, about leaves turning red and gold, about the way they drifted down, circling in the breeze before resting upon the earth. It spoke of rivers carrying the reflection of the sky, of the smell of firewood in the air, of the long shadows stretching over the fields as the day slowly leaned toward evening. His voice was low, deep, unhurried, each word rolling gently into the next, each phrase lingering like a note of music. The children listened in silence. Some rested their chins upon their hands, eyes half closed. Others leaned forward slightly, letting the words paint soft pictures in their minds. One by one, the images of autumn settled into them. A forest glowing with orange light, a single leaf falling upon still water, the quiet of a path covered in gold. Outside the window, as if to echo the poem, the real leaves stirred. A gust of wind passed, and a dozen leaves lifted, spun, and fell in a slow cascade. The sound was gentle. Rustle, rustle, rustle. The rhythm matched the teacher's voice, as though nature itself was reading along. The poem ended, but silence remained. It was a full silence, not empty. A silence rich with warmth, with thought, with breath. The teacher closed the book softly, as if not to disturb the stillness he had created. His eyes moved across the room, and he smiled faintly, saying nothing more. The poem ended, but silence remained. It was a full silence, not empty. A silence rich with warmth, with thought, with breath. The teacher closed the book softly, as if not to disturb the stillness he had created. His eyes moved across the room, and he smiled faintly, saying nothing more. The children did not speak. They sat in the glow of the fading light, each of them carrying the poem like a secret folded into their hearts. The room breathed with them, slow, steady, calm, as the gentle afternoon drifted forward, carrying them deeper into peace, deeper into rest. The afternoon sun had grown softer now. its golden light falling lower through the tall windows, spreading long shadows across the wooden floor. The air was calm, touched with the faint coolness of evening. Inside the one-room schoolhouse, the children sat quietly, their movements slower, their eyes reflecting the peaceful rhythm of the day. The teacher stood before the blackboard once again, holding a piece of chalk between his fingers. With a gentle hand, he wrote the final words of the day, each letter drawn with care, steady and unhurried. The sound of the chalk against the board was soft and even, scritch, 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 echoing like a heartbeat in the silence. When the last word was written, the teacher set the chalk down, turned to face the class, and let his eyes rest on each of the children. His voice was low, calm, and filled with warmth as he said, "The most important thing is not only what you learn in books, but what you carry in your heart. The greatest lesson is to love, to be kind, and to share with others." His words drifted slowly into the still air, settling gently, like autumn leaves falling one by one onto the earth. The children listened in silence, their faces thoughtful, their breathing slow and even. Some leaned on their desks, their eyes half closed, as if the lesson itself had lulled them into a dream. Others gazed at the fading light on the floor, the golden lines stretching longer and longer, like threads weaving the day into evening. For a moment, the room was completely still. The only sound was the faint rustle of leaves outside, stirred by a passing breeze, and the soft, steady rhythm of breath inside. It was as if time itself had paused, allowing everyone, teacher, children, and the little schoolhouse, to rest together in the same gentle silence. The teacher smiled, quietly, tenderly, and said no more. He allowed the silence to remain, a silence that was not empty, but full of peace. It was the last lesson of the day, not written on the board, not found in any book, but carried in the calm of their hearts. That kindness, patience, and love are the truest things we can learn. And as the light of afternoon faded into the first hint of dusk, the small classroom seemed to breathe along with them, slow and deep, holding them in a cradle of stillness, preparing them gently for the close of day. The day drifted toward its end, the sunlight fading slowly, sinking lower across the quiet fields. Inside the one-room schoolhouse, the children sat in a calm hush, their hearts still carrying the last lesson. Then, from the small tower above the roof, the bell began to ring once more. Its sound was deep, steady, and slow, floating out into the cool air of evening. Each note lingered, stretching far beyond the schoolyard, fading gently into the golden sky. The children lifted their heads, eyes soft, and knew the day had come to a close. They closed their notebooks carefully, the sound of pages folding shut like a gentle sigh. Chairs creaked softly as they were pushed back. Little footsteps tapped against the wooden floor. Not hurried, not rushed, only steady, like the rhythm of a lullaby. The children gathered their satchels, their laughter quiet, their voices low, as if the whole world had agreed to whisper. One by one, they stepped outside, into the cool evening air. The path before them was covered in leaves, red, gold, amber, scattered like a carpet woven by autumn itself. The children walked upon it, their feet stirring a soft crunch, 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 a sound both lively and soothing, echoing in the fading light. Some skipped lightly, their hands brushing the air, catching the last warmth of the sun. Others walked slowly, side by side, their voices blending with the rustling of the trees. The teacher stood at the doorway, watching them go, his figure calm, his smile tender, his eyes filled with quiet pride. The sky above glowed with the last colors of day, a pale gold at the horizon, fading into gentle blue, and further still, into the deep promise of night. The fields breathed with the scent of autumn earth, cool and grounding. The little schoolhouse stood behind them, wrapped in shadows, resting, waiting for tomorrow. The bell's echo faded at last. Only the rustle of leaves and the laughter of children remained, both carrying the spirit of the day away, soft and unbroken. And in that moment, the path of fallen leaves became more than just a road home. It became a gentle farewell, a promise of warmth, a cradle of peace to carry them into the coming night. Evening deepened, and slowly the last traces of sunlight faded from the horizon. The golden glow dissolved into soft blue, and the soft blue into the quiet darkness of night. The fields that had shimmered with warmth now lay in stillness, wrapped in the cool breath of autumn. The children had gone home, their laughter carried away by the wind. The path of leaves was empty now, save for the rustle of branches and the quiet whisper of the breeze. In the distance, the village lamps began to glow faintly, small dots of light, flickering like stars fallen to earth. The one-room schoolhouse stood in silence. Its wooden walls, which had echoed with voices and laughter, now rested in stillness. The desks were quiet, the chalk lay motionless upon the board, and the old floor breathed gently, holding the memory of footsteps. Through the window, the silver light of the rising moon fell across the empty chairs, bathing them in calm. The breeze slipped in through the cracks of the door, carrying the scent of fallen leaves, cool earth, and distant smoke. It moved softly through the room, touching each corner, then vanished again into the night. The schoolhouse seemed to exhale, as though it too was settling down to sleep. Above, the stars spread wide, countless and serene, their light scattered across the dark sky. The bell in the small tower no longer rang, but its echo seemed to linger in the silence. A memory, a gentle hum resting in the air. And so, the little schoolhouse slept, wrapped in shadow, cradled by the night. It held within its wooden walls the warmth of the day just past, the lessons, the laughter, the kindness. It rested, waiting for another morning, another beginning. And as the schoolhouse slept, so too could you, breathing slowly, letting go, drifting into the same stillness, carried by the quiet night into the gentlest of dreams.